What's up, guys? So when I originally installed this Highlifter 3.5 inch lift on here, that's really a 2-inch lift, did not like the upper shock placement. This top of the shock used to bolt way back in here. So the reason I didn't like it was because it had too much down travel. The angles were absolutely atrocious. You can see better on this side. That's where Highlifter wanted me to mount the shock. I tried mounting it there, didn't work. And then this is where I decided to mount it myself once I redid it. As you can see, there's a nice bubblegum stick weld on there, right, nice and strong, but it clears everything just barely. And this is at full down travel, so everything, you know, that's as close as that'll get there, and that's as close as that'll get there. But so basically what I did was I bought these shock tabs off eBay, 1/4 inch thick shock tabs, and I welded them on. I can put a link in the description. Very easy, did not take long at all. And what I accomplished by doing this was I got my axle angles a lot better. When I originally installed the lift, I was like, yeah, the angles are pretty bad at full down travel, but I'm not going to worry about it until I break an axle. Well, then I had to change the other axle because the boot came off, and I started looking into it, and it turned out that with the shock in the Highlifter hole, at full down travel, the suspension wasn't even able to droop down all the way. It was actually binding up the axle and binding up the joints for the sway bar. So now you can see it, even at full down travel, these two bars are nowhere near parallel, which means even at full down travel, the sway bar is still helping you not flip over. So that's a big plus. Another big plus is you won't break as many axles, because these axles are swept back pretty far. So with that much angle on there, you were asking for trouble with the axles. Some people said it worked, some people said it didn't. I'm running pretty aggressive tires and I ride pretty hard, and that is as much angle as I want to put on a stock axle. That's still a ton of angle, but it's way better than it was before. It's 2.5 degrees better than it was before. Three and a half degrees. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it's pretty significant. So if you want to measure your axle angle, by the way, you can download a level app and just put the phone against the axle. That's a pretty easy way to do it. So that's how it looks at full down travel. A lot more reasonable than before. And because I lifted it properly by swinging the shock out, I increased the load carrying capacity, and my lift, once it's loaded down or even static, is about the same as it would be with the bolt in this hole, which drops the shock down a lot more. Because moving the shock out gives it better leverage. Just see how it's almost straight up and down at max down travel? That's what you want. It's going to help this progressive spring from not riding spring bound all the time, which it almost always will with a big load in it. But the main thing is it's going to be more reliable, and my static ride height, you know, just sitting there, will be just about as high or higher. So I'm going to set it down and measure the ground clearance and tell you what the difference is between the Mud Puppy hole and the Highlifter hole. So there you go. Drove it back and forth a few times. It's on level ground, and my ground clearance under the hitch is 12.25 inches. So compare that to my other video, and you can see the difference in lift. It's actually pretty close to the same amount of ground clearance, but I've got better weight carry capacity. It's not going to sag as bad. The sway bar is going to work better, and it's more level. Now you're probably wondering, why didn't Highlifter do this from the beginning if it's such a good idea? Well, it's because in order to do this, you have to relocate this brake cable holder. This used to mount up here with a 10mm bolt. You just move it over, throw a self-tapper into this part of the A-arm. Not going to hurt anything. You probably see the self-tapper in there. And look, you sure can. So I relocated that a little bit to make enough room for the shock to swing out over here at full down travel when this gets closer to the shock. The way I made it, nothing rubs. It's close, but that's what you want. It's all maximized. And at static, my angles are beautiful. That's not a bad angle at all. Axles aren't going to run hot. It's going to be good. Yes, I'd like more ground clearance. This thing has a lot of sag because of this giant progressive part of the spring. So in the future, what I may do to improve that is a small spring spacer. Well, I really hope someone comes out with some better springs. These springs are made for a really plush ride, not made for maintaining ground clearance. So this thing has a ton of travel. Most of it's down travel, unfortunately. So I would be interested in putting some other springs on here. Maybe one that's progressive, but not as progressive as this. Almost like a spring tender kit like you get for the Razors. Maybe it'll come with a double spring setup. Something like that would be very appealing. But as you know, there's no aftermarket parts for this. So that's a brand new Yamaha axle, because I tore that boot, and I rebuilt the stock axle to keep as a spare. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Hopefully those tabs don't break off. I don't think they're going to. It's really thick. And that bracket, the Highlifter gives you, is a 1/4 inch steel bracket, so I think it can handle the abuse of having that extra leverage on it.